You're walking home at night. The streetlights flicker. The sound of your footsteps is the only thing breaking the silence. You check your phone, one last message, one last call, and then nothing. No one ever sees you again. Tonight, we're diving into 5 real cases of people who vanished while walking home after dark, moments before they were gone forever. If you love unsolved mysteries and stories that keep you up at night, subscribe to the channel, because these disappearances might be some of the most chilling you've ever heard. Case 1. The Vanishing of Brandon Swanson, Minnesota, 2008. It was just after midnight on May 14, 2008, when Brandon Swanson, a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota, got in his car to drive home after celebrating the end of the semester with friends. The night was quiet, the rural roads nearly empty, and his route was one he'd driven many times before. But somewhere along the way, Brandon took a wrong turn, one that would lead him into one of the most chilling, unsolved disappearances in American history. Sometime around 1:15 a.m., Brandon's car veered off a gravel road and slid into a ditch. He wasn't hurt. His car still ran, but no matter how he tried, it wouldn't move. Realizing he was stuck, Brandon called his parents. On the other end of the line, his father, Brian, and his mother, Annette, could hear the frustration in his voice, but also calm. He wasn't panicking. He just wanted a ride home. For nearly 47 minutes, they spoke on the phone. Brandon told them he thought he was near the town of Lind, just a few miles away. His parents got in their car, following his directions, flashing their headlights, hoping he could spot them. Brandon said he could see lights in the distance. "I can see you," he said. "I'll walk toward you." But the Swansons couldn't see anything. They kept driving, calling out his name over the phone, trying to triangulate his position. Brandon kept walking, the sound of his footsteps crunching over gravel, echoing through the line. Then, without warning, his tone shifted. "Oh, shit," he shouted. And the line went silent. His parents called back, again and again, but Brandon never answered. The call remained connected for several minutes, but all they could hear was static and empty air. By morning, panic had turned to dread. The police began searching immediately, using cell tower pings to trace his phone's last location, near Taunton, Minnesota, about 25 miles from where Brandon thought he was. It didn't make sense. He had been completely disoriented that night, hundreds of miles of farmland stretching endlessly in every direction. Over the next days and weeks, hundreds of volunteers joined the search. Police, dogs, helicopters, all combed the fields, rivers, and ditches. The Yellow Medicine River was dragged repeatedly, since it ran near the last signal from his phone. A scent trail led from the car toward the river, and stopped. No footprints, no clothing, no body. Every year since, new searches have been organized. Nothing has ever been found, not even Brandon's phone, wallet, or shoes. It's as if he walked into the dark and vanished into the earth. Investigators have considered countless theories: that he drowned, that he fell into an abandoned well, or that something or someone found him that night in the fields. But none explain why no trace has ever been discovered. To this day, Brandon's parents still drive those same country roads, flashing their headlights into the endless dark, the same way they did that night, hoping that somehow their son might find his way home. A single phone call, a lonely road, and a voice that faded into the night. And for more than 15 years, one question has haunted everyone who's heard his story. What happened to Brandon Swanson? Case 2. The Disappearance of Lauren Spierer, Indiana, 2011. It was the early hours of June 3, 2011, when Lauren Spierer, a 20-year-old student at Indiana University, vanished into the night. She was a bright, outgoing young woman, just 5 feet tall with long blonde hair and a personality that lit up every room. That Thursday night started like any other for a college student at the end of the semester. Friends, drinks, laughter. But by morning, Lauren was gone. And what happened in those missing minutes has remained one of America's most haunting mysteries. Lauren had spent the evening bar hopping with a group of friends in Bloomington, Indiana, a small but lively college town. The night began at Kilroy's Sports Bar, one of the most popular student hangouts. Security cameras caught her entering the bar just after midnight. Inside, she was seen dancing and laughing, visibly intoxicated, but enjoying herself. Around 2:30 a.m., she left the bar, barefoot, carrying only her phone and keys. Her shoes and purse were later found inside. From that moment, a timeline began to form, one built from fragments of grainy security footage and contradictory witness statements. Lauren stopped by a friend's apartment nearby, where she stayed briefly before deciding to head home around 4 a.m. Cameras along the route captured her walking unsteadily through the quiet streets of Bloomington, passing under the yellow glow of streetlights. She stumbled at one point, picked herself up, and kept moving. A few friends claimed she was offered help, but turned it down. Others said she was last seen heading toward her apartment, just a few blocks away. She never made it. By sunrise, no one had heard from her. Calls went unanswered, texts unread. When friends realized she hadn't returned, panic set in. Her parents drove from New York to Bloomington within hours, and police launched an immediate search. But there was no trace, no signs of struggle, no witnesses, no physical evidence of any kind. Over the following weeks, the search for Lauren became one of the largest in Indiana's history. Hundreds of volunteers scoured fields, rivers and alleyways, drones, cadaver dogs, divers. Every resource was used. Yet the result was always the same: nothing. Investigators soon turned their attention to the group of friends Lauren had been with that night. Their stories didn't quite match. Some claimed she was safe when they last saw her. Others seemed evasive, changing details under questioning. A few even refused polygraph tests. Rumors spread that someone in her circle knew more than they admitted, but with no body, no evidence, and no confessions, police had little to go on. Over the years, countless theories have emerged: that Lauren was abducted by a stranger, that she fell victim to a hit and run and her body was hidden, or even that foul play occurred among her friends. But every lead, every supposed tip, has led nowhere. Now, more than a decade later, Lauren's disappearance still casts a shadow over Bloomington. The city where she was last seen feels forever marked by her absence, a reminder that even in familiar streets, under the safety of streetlights, someone can vanish in seconds. Her parents still visit Indiana each year, placing flowers near where she was last seen. They've said that closure isn't just about finding justice, it's about finding her. A short walk home, a few city blocks, and a young woman who vanished into the quiet of an ordinary night. Case 3. The mysterious vanishing of Damien Nettles, England, 1996. It was a cold, rainy night on November the 2nd, 1996, on the Isle of Wight, a quiet coastal community off the southern coast of England. 16-year-old Damien Nettles had spent the evening at a house party with friends, laughing, drinking, and doing what any normal teenager might on a Saturday night. But when he decided to walk home alone just after 10:30 p.m., something went terribly wrong. That short walk, barely a mile, would become the last confirmed trace of him. At around 11 p.m., CCTV footage captured Damien inside a local fish and chip shop called Yorkie's. The grainy black and white video shows him standing by the counter, tall and skinny, his hair damp from the rain. He appeared slightly disoriented, perhaps tipsy, but polite, He ordered food, waited for a few minutes, and then walked back into the dark, wet night. That was the last confirmed sighting of Damien Nettles alive. From that moment, the timeline of his final movements becomes a fog of confusion, conflicting statements, and disturbing rumors. Several locals later reported seeing a group of men acting suspiciously on the same road Damien would have taken home. One witness described seeing an older man trying to force a younger boy into a van. Another said a group of men were harassing someone near the high street. The police, however, dismissed many of these early reports, calling them unreliable. By the time Damien's parents, Val and Ian Nettles, realized he hadn't come home, it was morning. They called the police immediately, but instead of launching a search, officers suggested he'd probably run away or crashed at a friend's place. Critical hours were lost. By the time authorities began taking the case seriously, any potential leads had already gone cold. The investigation that followed was plagued by errors and lost evidence. CCTV tapes were accidentally recorded over, statements disappeared from police files, and some witnesses weren't interviewed until months later. Val Nettles, who has since become one of Britain's most outspoken missing persons advocates, spent years battling to get Damien's case reopened. Over time, darker theories emerged. Local rumors linked Damien's disappearance to drug dealers operating in the area during the 1990s. Some believe he may have witnessed something he shouldn't have, or crossed paths with the wrong people that night. In 2011, police arrested 8 men in connection with the case, including known criminal figures from the Isle of Wight. But without a body, physical evidence, or confessions, they were all released. The case remains unsolved. For nearly 3 decades, Damien's family has refused to give up. They've walked the same route he took, searched woods and fields, and pleaded for information from the community. Every year, Val writes a letter to her son, hoping someone, somewhere, might finally come forward with the truth. The story of Damien Nettles is not just a tale of a boy who vanished. It's a tragedy of neglect, silence, and unanswered questions. A teenager walked home on a rainy night in a small English town and disappeared into thin air. No trace, no justice, no peace. And as the years pass, the echoes of that night grow quieter, but for his family, the search will never end. Case 4, the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa, California, 2013. It began like any other late summer night, but for 19-year-old Bryce Laspisa, August 30th, 2013, would be the last night anyone saw him. Bryce was a college student at Sierra College, just outside Sacramento, California. Known for his bright red hair, easygoing personality, and artistic talent, he seemed to have a promising future. But in the days before his disappearance, something changed. Friends noticed Bryce was acting strangely, restless, detached, and sleepless. He had recently broken up with his girlfriend, Kim Sly, and had been drinking heavily, using the ADHD medication Vivance to stay awake. Those close to him described his behavior as unsettling. He was giving away personal belongings, like his Xbox and sentimental items, as if preparing to leave everything behind. That night, Bryce told Kim he was driving home to see his parents in Laguna Niguel, about 7 hours away. But as the night unfolded, his actions grew increasingly mysterious. At 11:30 p.m., he texted a friend a cryptic message, "You'll see me soon." By early morning, his parents, Karen and Michael Laspisa, received a call from him. He sounded calm but distant, insisting he was fine and on his way. But hours passed and he never arrived. Concerned, they tracked his phone using the car's location service. It showed that Bryce had been sitting in his vehicle near Castaic Lake, just north of Los Angeles, for nearly 9 hours, motionless. When police arrived, they found Bryce gone, but his 2013 Toyota Highlander had been driven off a 25-foot embankment and flipped onto its side. Inside the car, investigators found his wallet, ID, phone, and laptop, everything he would have needed to survive or run away. The back window had been smashed from the inside, suggesting Bryce had escaped after the crash, but where he went next remains a mystery. Search teams scoured the area around Castaic Lake for weeks. Helicopters, divers, and bloodhounds were deployed. The dogs tracked Bryce's scent from the crash site to the edge of the water, and then it stopped. No signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away, no trace of Bryce anywhere. Authorities speculated that he may have been disoriented, injured, or possibly suffering from a mental breakdown. Some believe he may have walked away to start a new life. Others fear he drowned in the lake, despite extensive searches finding nothing. Over time, the case of Bryce Laspisa has become one of California's most haunting modern mysteries. His parents have never stopped searching, keeping his story alive through interviews, awareness campaigns, and online communities devoted to missing persons. The image that remains is chilling. A crashed car by a quiet lake at dawn, a back window shattered from within. A young man vanished into the mist, leaving behind every trace of who he was. What happened to Bryce Laspisa that night? Was it an accident, a breakdown, or something darker? No one knows. And until the truth surfaces from the depths of Castaic Lake, his disappearance will continue to haunt those who search for answers in the dark. Case 5, the night of Maura Murray, New Hampshire, 2004. It was the evening of February 9, 2004, when 21-year-old Maura Murray, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, vanished without a trace on a cold, desolate road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. What began as a minor car accident became one of the most haunting and debated missing person cases in modern American history. Earlier that day, Maura had abruptly emailed her professors, claiming there had been a death in the family. But there hadn't been. She packed up some clothes, her textbooks, toiletries, and even a box of wine. She withdrew $280 in cash, left campus, and began driving north into the snowy wilderness. No one knows exactly where she was going. Around 7:25 p.m., a local resident reported a single-car crash on Route 112, a winding rural road lined with trees and snowbanks. When another passerby stopped to offer help, Maura appeared shaken but uninjured. She told the man not to call the police, insisting she'd already done so. He drove away, but when officers arrived just minutes later, her black satin sedan was still there, and Maura was gone. Inside the car, police found her airbags deployed, wine spilled across the seats, and a cracked windshield. Her personal items, gloves, CDs, school papers, and even a box of wine coolers were scattered inside. But her phone, debit cards, and ID were missing. There were no footprints leading away from the crash site in the fresh snow. No signs of a struggle. No indication she had hitched a ride. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. What followed was one of the most intense search efforts in New England history. Helicopters equipped with heat sensors combed the area. Bloodhounds tracked her scent for a short distance down the road before it abruptly ended, as if she had been picked up by a passing vehicle. Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Some believe Maura staged her own disappearance, escaping a life filled with academic pressure and personal turmoil. Others point to criminal activity, suggesting she may have accepted a ride from someone with sinister intentions. More chilling still are theories that she fell victim to an unknown predator, lurking along those icy, silent roads. Her family has never stopped searching. Maura's father, Fred Murray, has spent decades retracing her last steps, convinced that foul play was involved. Investigators have dug up remote properties, drained sections of nearby rivers, and revisited tips from locals, yet nothing conclusive has ever surfaced. Today, the crash site on Route 112 has become a chilling landmark. Visitors still leave flowers and ribbons tied to trees, honoring the young woman who disappeared into the cold New Hampshire night. Nearly 20 years later, Maura Murray's case remains one of the most enduring and unsettling mysteries in America. A story that blurs the line between accident, escape, and something far darker. A car abandoned in the snow. A quiet road swallowed by darkness, and a young woman who, somewhere between fear and fate, simply ceased to exist.